Hello friends! About 80% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed yet, and I'd be really happy if you did. Don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your interaction helps the content reach more people and really supports the growth of the channel. Thank you all so much. And tell me, from which country or city are you watching?
They handed me the Ranger Handbook on my first day at Coconino National Forest. Standard stuff. Trail maintenance, wildlife protocols, emergency procedures. Then my supervisor slipped me a second notebook, older with water-damaged pages. The real rules, he called it. Rule 1, never whistle after dark. Rule 2, if you see smoke but smell roses, run. Rule 3, the skinwalkers wear faces like masks. Check the eyes. I thought he was messing with the rookie. Then last week I watched Avery Crow walk into the woods at noon. At sunset, Avery walked out. But I was still hearing Avery's voice screaming deeper in the forest. Both of them knew things only Avery would know. Hello, friends. About 80% of the friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and contributes to the growth of the channel. Thank you all. From which country or city do you follow the channel? They call me Wyatt Hale, 32 years old, born and raised in Flagstaff, Arizona. I grew up with the Red Rocks and Ponderosa Pines as my backyard. My father was a ranger before me and his father before him. The forest was in my blood, or so I thought. I believed I knew these woods, understood their rhythms, their secrets. I was wrong. Dead wrong. The Coconino National Forest stretches across nearly 2 million acres of northern Arizona wilderness. From the Red Rock country near Sedona to the alpine heights of the San Francisco peaks, it encompasses every ecosystem you can imagine. Beautiful, people say, majestic, a natural wonder. They have no idea what lives in the spaces between the trees, in the shadows that never quite disappear even at high noon. I signed up for the ranger position 6 months ago. The posting made it sound routine. Monitor trails, enforce regulations, assist hikers, watch for fires during the dry season. The pay was decent, the housing was free, and I would be stationed at one of the more remote outposts near the Mogollon Rim. Perfect, I thought. Peace and quiet away from the noise of civilization. A chance to reconnect with nature. The warning signs started before I even reached my station. During my orientation at the main office in Flagstaff, the veterans had a strange way of looking at me. Not pity exactly, more like resignation, like they knew something I didn't and had already written me off. One older ranger, a weathered man named Carson with eyes like chips of flint, pulled me aside after the official briefing. "You're headed to Rim Station 7, he said. It wasn't a question. That's right. He studied me for a long moment, then shook his head. You seem like a good kid, smart, but that won't matter up there. What do you mean? Carson glanced around, making sure we were alone. That station has a reputation. High turnover. Rangers don't last long at 7. Some quit after a few weeks, others... He trailed off, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to swallow. Others what? Others go missing. Or worse, they come back different. Changed. He gripped my shoulder, his fingers digging in hard enough to hurt. Listen to me. If you see anything strange, anything at all that doesn't feel right, you radio it in immediately. Don't investigate on your own. Don't try to be a hero. And whatever you do, follow the old rules. All of them. What old rules? But Carson was already walking away, his boots echoing on the linoleum floor of the office. I stood there confused and unsettled, wondering what the hell he meant. I would find out soon enough. The drive to Station 7 took 3 hours, winding through increasingly dense forest on roads that grew narrower and more rutted with each passing mile. The last hour required 4-wheel drive, my truck bouncing over rocks and fallen branches as the canopy overhead thickened, blocking out the afternoon sun. By the time I reached the station, twilight was already settling over the forest like a shroud. The station itself was a single-story log cabin, sturdy and well-maintained from the outside. Solar panels on the roof, a satellite dish for communications, a stone chimney rising from one end. A small shed stood nearby, housing a backup generator and supplies. Everything looked normal, professional, exactly what I expected. Then I saw the trees. All around the clearing, at least 24 Ponderosa pines bore deep carvings in their bark. Not the casual vandalism of initials or hearts, but intricate geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. They seemed to writhe and shift when I wasn't focusing directly on them, creating an optical illusion that made my stomach turn. Some of the carvings were old, the bark grown over the edges, meaning they had been there for years, decades maybe. Others looked fresh, the exposed wood still weeping sap. I approached the nearest tree, reaching out to trace one of the symbols. The moment my fingers touched the carving, a jolt of cold ran up my arm, so intense it felt like nerve damage. I jerked my hand back, cradling it against my chest. The skin of my fingertips had gone white, bloodless, and it took several minutes of rubbing before feeling returned. That should have been my first clue to turn around, to radio in that I was sick or injured or just plain not suitable for the position. But pride and stubbornness kept me there. I was a Hale. My family had served these forests for generations. I wasn't going to be scared off by some weird carvings and superstitious warnings. The inside of the cabin was sparse but functional. A main room with a kitchenette and small dining table, a wood stove in the corner. A door led to a bedroom barely large enough for a twin bed and dresser. Another door opened to a bathroom with a chemical toilet and a shower fed by a gravity-fed water tank. The walls were bare except for a large topographical map of the sector and a framed photograph of a younger Carson, standing with another ranger, both of them grinning in the sunshine. Something about the other man's smile seemed forced, his eyes not quite matching the expression on his face. I found the notebook that first night. I was unpacking my gear, stowing supplies in the cabinets when I noticed one of the kitchen drawers didn't close all the way. I pulled it out completely and found another drawer behind it, shallower, hidden. Inside was a water-stained notebook with a cracked leather cover. No title, no name, just page after page of handwritten entries in different inks and different hands. Some entries were neat and methodical. Others were barely legible, scrawled in obvious panic. The first page was dated 1987. To whoever comes after me, these rules are not suggestions. They are survival. I learned them through trial and bitter error. Some rules I learned from the ranger before me. Others I discovered on my own, always at a cost. Follow them exactly. Your life depends on it. Rule 1. Never whistle, sing, or make unnecessary noise after dark. They are attracted to human sounds. Rule 2. If you see smoke but smell roses, run immediately in the opposite direction. Do not investigate. It is a lure. Rule 3. The skinwalkers wear faces like masks. The eyes are always wrong. Too bright, too dark, or the wrong color entirely. Check the eyes of anyone who approaches the station after sunset. Rule 4. Do not enter the forest alone after 9 p.m. If you must go out, bring 2 sources of light and never let both go out. Rule 5. If you hear your name called from the woods, do not answer. Do not acknowledge it in any way. They are testing you. Rule 6. Animals behaving strangely are not sick. They are being herded. Leave the area immediately. Rule 7. If you wake up and your window or door is open when you know you closed it, do not go back to sleep. Stay awake and armed until dawn. Rule 8. Trust the ravens. If they avoid an area, you should too. Rule 9. Never follow lights in the forest. They are never what they appear to be. Rule 10. If someone asks you to help them find something they lost in the woods at night, refuse. They are not human, no matter how much they seem to be. Rule 11. Keep salt in your pockets. Iron near your bed. These are old protections, but they work. Rule 12. If the radio starts speaking in voices you recognize but the words don't make sense, turn it off. Do not listen. Rule 13. Mark your path when you go hiking. They rearrange the trails. Rule 14. If you encounter something that shouldn't exist, do not photograph it. They know when they have been seen. Rule 15. The emergency shelter at Ravens Point is not safe. Do not go there for any reason. The entries went on page after page, rule after rule, each one more disturbing than the last. Different rangers had added notes in the margins, amendments and warnings, and desperate pleas to future occupants of Station 7. Some pages were stained with what looked like blood. Others had been torn out, leaving jagged edges behind. The final entry was dated 3 months ago. It got Johnson. Dragged him out of the cabin while I hid under the bed like a coward. I could hear him screaming for hours, getting farther away, then closer again like they were bringing him back to toy with him some more. When dawn came, I found his boots outside the door, arranged neatly on the porch. Nothing else. Just the boots. I can't do this anymore.
I can't. If you're reading this, you're already in danger.
The only question is whether you're smart enough to survive. I wasn't. There was no signature, no name, just that final chilling statement. I sat at the kitchen table, the notebook in front of me, my hands shaking slightly. Part of me wanted to believe it was all an elaborate prank, a hazing ritual for new rangers. But something in the worn pages and the desperate scrawl of the handwriting told me it was real. Every word of it. I looked up at the windows, suddenly aware of how dark it had become outside. The solar-powered exterior lights cast weak pools of illumination around the cabin, but beyond that was absolute blackness. No moon, no stars visible through the thick canopy, just darkness that seemed to press against the windows like a living thing. That's when I heard the first whistle. It came from somewhere in the trees, a melodic series of notes that sounded almost like a bird call. Almost, but not quite. There was something off about it, something that raised the hair on the back of my neck. I stood up, moving to the window, peering out into the night. The whistle came again, closer this time, answered by another from a different direction, then another and another until the forest seemed alive with them, surrounding the cabin. Rule 1. Never whistle, sing, or make unnecessary noise after dark. I backed away from the window, my heart hammering. The whistles continued for another 10 minutes, drawing closer and then receding. A conversation in a language I couldn't understand. When they finally stopped, the silence that followed was somehow worse than the noise had been. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with every light in the cabin on, the notebook in front of me, a hunting knife within easy reach. Every creak of the building, every rustle outside made me jump. When dawn finally came, painting the sky beyond the windows in shades of pink and gold, I felt like I had aged 10 years. The next morning, I radioed into the main office, intending to report the strange events and request a transfer. But when Carson's voice crackled over the radio, he cut me off before I could finish. "Let me guess," he said, his tone flat. "You heard whistling. Found the notebook. Thinking about quitting already, odd. How did you know?" "Because every ranger at Station 7 goes through the same thing. First night is always the worst. They test you, see if you're going to panic and run." "They? Who are they, Carson? What the hell is going on out here?" There was a long pause, filled only with static. When Carson spoke again, his voice was heavy with something like sorrow. "That's not a conversation for the radio, Hale. And it's not information I can just give you. You have to see it for yourself, understand it for yourself, or you won't believe it. You'll think we're all crazy. I already think you're crazy. Fair enough." Another pause. "Look, you have two choices. You can pack up right now and drive back to Flagstaff, put in for a transfer to a different station. No one will blame you. Or you can stay, do your job, and follow the rules. All of them. To the letter. And if I stay, then you might survive long enough to understand why those rules exist. Why this place needs rangers despite everything. Why we can't just close Station 7 and abandon this sector. That's not exactly reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest." Carson's voice softened slightly. "You come from a ranger family, Hale. Your grandfather served here, did you know that? Not at Station 7, but in the Coconino." He understood. "Your father understood too, even if he never talked about it. There's a reason the Hale family keeps coming back to these woods. Some people are called to this work, to standing between the darkness and everyone else." I wanted to argue, to demand real answers instead of cryptic statements and vague warnings. But something in Carson's words resonated with me. My grandfather had been a ranger until the day he died, and my father after him, despite opportunities to leave to take safer, better-paying jobs. They had stayed in the forest, dedicating their lives to it, and now I was following in their footsteps. "I'll stay," I said finally. "For now, good man. Remember the rules. Trust your instincts. And Hale, don't be a hero. Heroes don't last long out there." The radio went dead, leaving me alone with my thoughts in the oppressive silence of the forest. The first few days were uneventful. I fell into a routine. Wake at dawn, check the perimeter, maintain the trails, monitor for fire hazards, document wildlife sightings. The work was physical and demanding, which helped keep my mind occupied. During the day, the forest seemed almost normal. Birds sang in the trees. Squirrels chattered and jumped between branches. Deer grazed in the meadows. The sun filtered through the pine canopy in dappled patterns, beautiful and serene. But at night, everything changed. The whistling returned each evening like clockwork, starting around 9 p.m. and continuing until just before dawn. I learned to ignore it, to keep myself busy with reading or equipment maintenance, anything to avoid focusing on the sounds outside. Sometimes I heard footsteps circling the cabin, heavy and deliberate, sometimes scratching at the walls like something with claws testing the strength of the logs. I followed Rule 7 religiously. If I woke up to find a window or door I knew I had secured standing open, I stayed awake for the rest of the night, knife in hand, every light blazing. It happened 3 times in the first week. On the 8th day, I met Avery Crow. I was clearing a fallen tree from the rim trail, working up a good sweat despite the morning chill when I heard someone approaching. I turned to find a man about my age, maybe a few years older, picking his way over the rough terrain. He was tall and lean, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and sharp features that suggested Native American heritage. His ranger uniform was identical to mine, but worn and weathered in a way that spoke of long service. "You must be Hale," he said, extending a hand. "Avery Crow. I'm stationed about 5 miles northwest of here, up near Walker Lake." I shook his hand, grateful for human contact. "Good to meet you. Didn't know there was another station nearby. 3 of us in this sector, Yumi and Samuel Drake over east near the canyon rim. We try to check in on each other every few days. The isolation can get to you if you're not careful." "Yeah, I'm starting to understand that." Avery studied me with dark eyes that seemed to see more than they should. "You've read the notebook. It wasn't a question." I nodded. "Good. Most rookies ignore it, think it's nonsense. They don't last long." He gestured at the fallen tree. "Need help with that?" Together, we managed to move the tree off the trail, rolling it down the slope to where it wouldn't be a hazard. As we worked, Avery talked, his voice casual but his words carefully chosen. "The Coconino is old," he said. "Older than the United States, older than European settlement, older than any modern civilization. The indigenous peoples knew about the things in these woods. They had names for them, rituals to protect themselves, sacred places they wouldn't enter. My grandmother was Navajo. She told me stories when I was a kid that I thought were just fairy tales. Then I became a ranger and I learned they were warnings." "Skinwalkers," I said quietly. Avery's expression darkened. "That's one name. There are others. Wendigo, Stonecoats, Shadow People. Different tribes, different words, but they're all talking about the same thing. Entities that exist in the spaces between human understanding. Things that hunt, that hunger, that hate." "Why don't we tell people? Warn them, close the forest? Who would believe us? And even if they did, these things have been here for thousands of years. They're part of the ecosystem, as much as the trees and the wildlife, maybe more. This is their home. We're the intruders." He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Our job isn't to fight them. We can't. Our job is to maintain the boundaries, to keep hikers safe when we can, to follow the rules and survive. That's all we can do." That's insane, is it?" Avery fixed me with that penetrating stare. "You've been here over a week. You've heard the whistling. You've felt them watching. You know something is wrong. Something that doesn't fit into your understanding of how the world works. You can either accept that and learn to live with it, or you can drive yourself crazy trying to rationalize it away." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. Because he was right. Everything I had experienced, everything I had read in that notebook, it was all real. Denying it wouldn't change the facts, so what do? I asked finally. "Follow the rules. Trust your instincts. Don't take unnecessary risks." Avery smiled, but there was no humor in it. "And don't get attached. To this place, to the other rangers, to anyone. This forest takes things from you. Pieces of yourself you don't even know you're losing until they're gone." We talked for another hour, Avery sharing tips and tricks he had learned during his 3 years at Walker Lake Station. How to recognize the signs of their presence, which trails were safer than others, the best ways to help lost hikers without putting yourself at unnecessary risk. By the time he left, heading back toward his own station, I felt marginally better equipped to handle my situation, but his final words as he disappeared into the trees stayed with me. "Watch yourself out here. Hale, the forest is watching you too." Days blended into weeks. I settled into the rhythm of the station, learning its quirks and demands. The solar panels needed cleaning every few days to maintain power. The water filtration system required regular maintenance. The satellite uplink was temperamental and often went down during storms. I hiked the trails daily, maintaining them, documenting conditions, occasionally helping lost or injured hikers back to civilization. During the day, I could almost pretend everything was normal. At night, the pretense shattered. The whistling became background noise, something I barely registered anymore. But other things started happening, escalating in frequency and intensity. I would wake to find muddy handprints on the windows, smeared across the glass from outside. Scratches appeared on the cabin walls, deep gouges in the wood that I couldn't explain. Food disappeared from the storage shed, even though the door remained locked and there was no sign of forced entry. Worst were the voices. They started about 3 weeks in. I would be lying in bed, hovering in that space between sleep and waking when I would hear someone calling my name. Sometimes it sounded like my father, his voice rough and familiar. Other times it was my mother, sweet and concerned. Once it was my grandfather, dead for 15 years, asking me to come outside and help him with something. Rule 5. If you hear your name called from the woods, do not answer. Do not acknowledge it in any way. I never answered. But God, it was hard, especially when the voices sounded so real, so genuinely worried or in need of help. My hand would reach for the door handle, my body moving on autopilot before my conscious mind could override the impulse. I started sleeping with my hands tucked under my pillow, a physical barrier to prevent myself from responding to the calls. Samuel Drake visited me in my 4th week. He arrived at noon, driving a battered pickup that had seen better days. Drake was older than Avery and me, maybe mid-40s with graying hair and a face like weathered leather. He moved with the careful deliberation of someone who had been injured in the past and never quite recovered, favoring his left leg slightly. "Brought you some supplies," he said, handing me a box filled with canned goods, batteries, and ammunition. "Main office sent them up with me. Also wanted to check on you, see how you're holding up." "I'm surviving." Drake studied me critically. "You look like hell." "Not sleeping?" "Hard to sleep when things are scratching at your walls every night." "Fair point." He limped past me into the cabin, helping himself to coffee from the pot I kept perpetually warm. "You're doing better than most, then." By week 4, most rookies have either quit or had a complete breakdown. You're still here, still functional. That's something. We sat at the small kitchen table and Drake told me his story. He had been a ranger for over 20 years, serving in various parks and forests across the country before being assigned to the Coconino 5 years ago. His first station had been peaceful, uneventful, but then he had been transferred to Station 3, one of the remote outposts deeper in the forest, and everything had changed. "Lost my partner there," he said quietly, staring into his coffee cup. "Her name was Rebecca Torres, best ranger I ever worked with. Smart, capable, followed every rule in the book." He paused, jaw working. "Didn't matter. They got her anyway. What happened?" "We were responding to a distress call from some hikers who hadn't returned when they were supposed to. Found their campsite abandoned, gear scattered everywhere, signs of a struggle. We split up to search the area. That was our mistake. Should have stayed together, but we were trying to cover ground quickly before dark." Drake's hands tightened around his coffee mug. I heard her scream. By the time I reached her location, she was gone. Just gone, no body, no blood trail, nothing. Like she had been erased from existence. "Did you ever find out what happened to her? Found her 3 days later, or what was left of her?" His voice had gone flat, emotionless. The tone of someone who had told this story too many times and couldn't afford to feel it anymore. She was still alive, barely. Couldn't talk, couldn't move. Just stared at me with these empty eyes. "We got her to a hospital, but she never recovered. Brain dead," they said. Her body kept breathing, but Rebecca was gone. Something had hollowed her out and left an empty shell behind. The silence that followed was oppressive. I didn't know what to say, how to respond to a horror like that. "Why do you stay?" I asked finally. "After something like that, why not leave, find a safer posting?" Drake looked at me, and for the first time I saw something like hope in his tired eyes. Because someone has to stand watch. Someone has to be here to help the people who don't know, who don't understand the danger. Rebecca gave her life for that. If I leave, if we all leave, then what did she die for? It was the same thing Carson had tried to tell me. The same reason Avery stayed despite the constant danger. There was a nobility in it, a sense of purpose that transcended self-preservation. But there was also something deeply tragic. A resignation to a fate none of them had chosen but all had accepted. Drake stayed for lunch, and we talked about lighter things. Sports, movies, books we had read. It was a brief respite from the darkness, a reminder that normal life still existed beyond the boundaries of the forest. When he finally left, bumping back down the rough road in his truck, I felt the weight of isolation settle over me once again. That night, the scratching at the walls was louder than ever. In my 6th week, I made my first real mistake. I was hiking the Northern Trail, a route that wound along the rim of a deep canyon, offering spectacular views of the valley below. It was late afternoon, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. I was making good time, planning to reach a scenic overlook and then double back to the station before dark. That's when I smelled roses. The scent was overwhelming, sweet and cloying, completely out of place in the pine forest. I stopped, looking around for the source, and that's when I saw the smoke. It was rising from somewhere below the rim, a thin gray column that spoke of a small controlled fire, a campfire most likely, which meant hikers or campers possibly lost or injured. Rule 2. If you see smoke but smell roses, run immediately in the opposite direction. The rule was clear, unambiguous. But I was a ranger. My job was to help people, to respond to potential emergencies. How could I justify turning away from what might be someone in need of assistance? I stood there, torn between duty and survival. The smell of roses making me slightly nauseous, I compromised. I would approach cautiously, check out the situation from a distance. If anything seemed off, I would retreat immediately. It was a reasonable middle ground, I told myself. Responsible. What a good ranger would do. I was an idiot. I found a narrow path leading down from the rim, steep and treacherous but manageable with care. The smoke grew thicker as I descended, though I still couldn't see its source. The smell of roses intensified, now mixed with something else, something rotten and organic that made me gag. But I kept going, driven by a mixture of duty and morbid curiosity. The path opened onto a small shelf of rock, hidden from above by the curve of the canyon wall. In the center of the shelf was a fire, burning despite there being no visible fuel. The flames were wrong, too blue, too cold-looking, and surrounding the fire were figures. They might have been human once. They still had the rough shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But the proportions were all wrong, elongated and twisted. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, and I could see dark shapes moving beneath it like worms or maggots writhing in dead flesh. They were arranged in a circle around the fire, swaying in unison to a rhythm I couldn't hear. One of them turned toward me, and I saw its face. It wore human features like a mask, skin stretched over something that wasn't quite the right shape underneath. The eyes were completely black, no whites, no iris, just depthless voids that reflected the firelight. The mouth opened and the smell of roses intensified, now mixed with decay so powerful it made me retch. "Help us," it said in a voice that sounded like my mother's. "We're lost. We need help." Rule 3, the skinwalkers wear faces like masks. Check the eyes. I ran. I don't remember scrambling back up the path, don't remember the cuts and bruises I must have gotten from the sharp rocks. All I remember is the sound of pursuit behind me, multiple sets of footsteps that didn't sound quite human, and voices calling out in tones that cycled through everyone I had ever known and loved. "Wyatt, wait. Son, come back. We just need help." I burst onto the rim trail and kept running, my lungs burning, my legs threatening to give out. The sun was setting, shadows lengthening across the path. I couldn't be caught out here in the dark, not now, not after seeing what I had seen. I made it back to the station just as full dark descended. I slammed the door behind me, throwing the bolt, my hands shaking so badly I could barely manage it. I grabbed the salt from the cabinet and poured a line across the threshold, then checked every window, making sure they were closed and locked. Iron nails, I needed iron nails. I found them in the toolbox and drove them into the window frames, praying the old protections would hold. The voices started immediately, calling from outside. "Wyatt, let us in. It's cold out here. Please, we need your help." I covered my ears, sank to the floor, and tried to remember how to breathe. They circled the cabin all night, their voices rising and falling, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry, sometimes just laughing in tones that made my skin crawl. I sat in the corner, every light in the place burning, the notebook open in my lap as I read and reread the rules, looking for something, anything that might help. Dawn came eventually, as it always did. The voices faded with the light, and the forest returned to its deceptive tranquility. But I was changed. I had seen them, really seen them, and I knew with absolute certainty that the rules weren't superstition or paranoia. They were the only thing keeping me alive. I radioed Carson that morning, my voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "I saw them," I said simply. "Yeah," Carson replied after a long pause. "Most rangers do eventually." "You going to quit?" "No." "Good, now you understand. Now you know what we're really doing out here." I did understand, and it terrified me. Avery visited 2 days later. He took one look at me and whistled low. "You had an encounter?" "Yeah." "Want to talk about it?" I told him everything, the roses, the smoke, the figures around the fire. He listened without interrupting, his expression grave. "You got lucky," he said when I finished. "The ones that use lures, that try to draw you in with illusions, they're dangerous, but they're not the worst. The worst are the ones you don't see until it's too late." "There are different types?" "As far as I can tell, yeah. Some wear faces, try to impersonate people. Others are more bestial, pure hunters. And then there are the ones that don't have any form at all. Just presences you can feel but never see." Avery stood, moving to the window, looking out at the forest. "I've been thinking about why they're here, what they are. Best guess? They're predators. We're prey. Simple as that. Everything else, the rules, the protections, the boundaries, it's all just survival mechanisms we've developed over centuries of being hunted. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be." He turned back to me. "But here's the thing. They follow rules too. They have limitations, weaknesses. They can't come in if you don't invite them. They can't cross certain barriers. They're strongest in the dark, but almost powerless in full daylight. If we're smart, if we're careful, we can survive. We can even protect others. How long have you been doing this?" 3 years at Walker Lake. 2 years before that at another station in the Kaibab National Forest. Similar problems there, different entities. I think every old forest has them. Things that don't want to be seen or understood. That exist in the gaps of our knowledge. We talked for hours. Avery sharing everything he had learned. All the hard-won knowledge that wasn't written in the notebook. How to identify safe zones versus danger zones. The significance of animal behavior. Ravens avoiding an area. Deer clustering together, coyotes going silent. The way temperature dropped unnaturally when they were near. The electric feeling in the air like the moments before a lightning strike. "You're going to have to make a choice," Avery said as he was preparing to leave. "Every ranger at a station like this does. You can do the minimum, stay inside at night, avoid taking risks, just survive. Or you can really learn about them, study them, try to understand what they are and what they want. The first option is safer. The second might actually make a difference. Which did you choose?" He smiled, sad and tired. "I think you know the answer to that." After Avery left, I pulled out the notebook and started my own entry. I documented everything I had seen and experienced, adding to the collective knowledge that future rangers would need. My handwriting looked cramped and anxious on the page, but I forced myself to be thorough, to include every detail no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. When I finished, I started a new section, observations and theories. If I was going to be stuck out here, I might as well try to understand what I was dealing with. The summer wore on, each day a careful dance between maintenance duties and survival. I mapped out the danger zones, marking areas where the scratching and whistling were most intense, where the feeling of being watched was strongest. I noted patterns in their behavior. They were more active during the new moon, less so during the full moon. They seemed drawn to certain locations, particularly old growth areas where the trees were massive and ancient. Samuel Drake came by regularly, always bringing supplies and news from the outside world. We would sit and talk, two men who had seen too much trying to find normalcy in casual conversation. He brought me books, magazines, anything to help pass the long nights when going outside wasn't an option. One evening, Drake showed up looking more shaken than usual. "Bad day?" I asked. "Bad week." He accepted the coffee I offered, his hands trembling slightly. "Had a group of hikers go missing in my sector. 4 college kids on a weekend trip. Found their car at the trailhead, but no sign of them on the trail." "Did you search?" "With Avery's help, yeah. Found their campsite near Eagle's Nest Spring. Tents intact, gear all there, no signs of struggle. But the kids?" He shook his head. "Gone. Like they walked away from everything and disappeared into thin air. Maybe they're lost, disoriented. Maybe. Or maybe they encountered something and ran. If they're alive, they won't survive long out there without supplies. And if they're not... He didn't finish the sentence. We sat in heavy silence. This was the worst part of the job. Knowing there were dangers we couldn't protect people from. Horrors we couldn't warn them about because no one would believe us. How many people had disappeared in these forests over the years? How many missing persons cases had been quietly closed with the assumption that the wilderness had claimed them, when the truth was so much darker? I've been thinking about quitting, Drake said suddenly. Just walking away. Let someone else deal with this nightmare. Why don't you? Because the alternative is worse. If trained rangers who understand the danger can barely survive out here, what chance do civilians have? At least we can help sometimes. At least we can bear witness, document what's happening, maybe someday figure out how to actually fight back. He looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion. You'll reach this point too, Hale. Where you're so tired you can barely function, where every shadow makes you jump, where you start to wonder if it might be easier to just let them take you. When you do, remember why we're here. Remember that we're all that stands between the darkness and everyone else. Drake left shortly after, and I was alone again with my thoughts in the approaching night. The incident with Avery happened in my 10th week. It was late morning, the sun high and bright, the forest peaceful. I was repairing a section of trail that had been damaged by erosion when I saw Avery walking toward me through the trees. He was moving normally, dressed in his ranger uniform, looking exactly like himself. "Hey," I called out. "Didn't expect to see you today." Avery smiled, but something about it seemed off. "Thought I'd stop by. See how you're doing." "Doing okay. Just working on this washout." We talked for a few minutes, casual conversation about the weather and trail conditions, but the whole time something was nagging at me. Something wrong I couldn't quite identify. Avery looked right, sounded right. Knew things only Avery would know about our previous conversations. Then he suggested we check out a section of trail deeper in the forest, an area he wanted to show me. "It's going to be dark soon," I said, checking my watch. "Maybe tomorrow would be better." "It's only noon," Avery said. "We have plenty of time." I looked at my watch again. It read 11:47 a.m. He was right, but something made me look at the sun's position in the sky. It was much lower than it should have been at noon, already beginning its descent toward the horizon. It was late afternoon, maybe 4 or 5 p.m. My watch was wrong or had been tampered with. I looked at Avery, really looked. His smile never reached his eyes. And his eyes, they were the right color, the right shape, but there was something off about the way they reflected light. They were too bright, almost luminous. Rule 3, check the eyes. "Actually," I said carefully, "I need to head back to the station. Forgot I have a radio check scheduled." The thing wearing Avery's face tilted its head, studying me. The smile remained fixed, painted on. "That's too bad. I really wanted to show you something. Maybe another time." "Of course." It turned and walked back into the trees, moving with Avery's gait, Avery's mannerisms. Perfect mimicry except for one detail. It didn't cast a shadow in the dappled sunlight. I waited until it was out of sight. Then I ran. I made it back to the station in record time, my heart hammering. I checked my watch again. It now read 4:32 p.m., the correct time. Something had manipulated it, tried to confuse me about how much daylight remained. I grabbed the radio immediately. "Avery, this is Hale. Come in. Static. Avery, respond." "Are you okay?" More static. Then a burst of noise that might have been words, might have been screaming. Then Avery's voice, clear and terrified. "Hale? Jesus Christ, Hale, is that you? Where are you?" "I'm lost. I've been lost since this morning. I went to check out a report of smoke near Walker Lake and got turned around. I can't find the trail. Can't find anything. It's like the forest is changing, moving around me. Stay where you are. I'll come get you." "No." His voice was sharp with panic. "Don't come out here. Whatever you do, don't come looking for me. I saw something. I saw myself. I was standing in a clearing, and I saw myself on the other side, staring back at me. But it wasn't me. It couldn't be me. I'm me." Ice flooded my veins. "Avery, listen to me. Find a clearing somewhere open. Stay there until dawn. Don't move, don't follow any sounds, don't trust anything you see. I'll come for you at first light." Okay, I can do that. There's a clearing about 50 yards south of my position. I'll hole up there." "Good, keep your radio on." I'll check in every hour. I contacted Drake next, then Carson at the main office. Drake said he would head toward Walker Lake from the east, try to triangulate Avery's position from his radio signal. Carson authorized a helicopter for first light, assuming the weather held. I spent the night glued to the radio, checking in with Avery every hour. Each time he sounded a little more strained, a little more frightened. He was seeing things, he said. Figures moving around the edges of his clearing, hearing voices. The worst was when he radioed in at 2 a.m. "Hale, it's here. I can see it at the edge of the clearing. It's wearing my face, it's me, but I can see its eyes. They're wrong. They're all wrong. Don't engage. Don't acknowledge it. You know the rules. It's calling to me, using my voice, saying things I would say. How does it know? How can it know what I would say? It doesn't matter. Stay in the clearing. Stay in the light. There is no light. I used up all my batteries. It's just darkness and that thing out there wearing my skin." The radio went silent. I called his name repeatedly but got no response. Drake radioed in. He had lost Avery's signal. Either his radio had died or something worse had happened. Dawn came with agonizing slowness. The moment there was enough light, I set out toward Walker Lake, Drake coming from the other direction. The helicopter arrived an hour after sunrise, sweeping the area with thermal imaging. They found Avery 3 hours later. He was sitting in a clearing, exactly where he said he would be, his back against a large boulder. He was alive, conscious, able to respond to questions, but something was wrong. His eyes were distant, unfocused. His responses were slow, mechanical, and when they asked him what had happened, he just kept repeating the same phrase. It took something. It took something from me. They evacuated him by helicopter. I watched it disappear over the trees, carrying my friend away to a hospital that wouldn't understand what had happened to him any better than we did. Drake and I stood in the clearing, looking at the boulder where Avery had spent the night. Carved into the stone, in letters that looked burned rather than cut, was a message: Wyatt Hale. We know your name now, we wear your friends' faces, soon we will wear yours. I felt sick. This was my fault. If I hadn't engaged with the fake Avery, if I had recognized it immediately and retreated, maybe the real Avery wouldn't have been targeted. Maybe they wouldn't have focused on him. This isn't on you, Drake said quietly, reading my thoughts. They were going to come for him eventually. They come for all of us. All you did was delay it slightly. That's supposed to make me feel better? No. But it's the truth. We hiked back in silence, each lost in our own dark thoughts. Carson pulled me from Station 7 the next day. He drove out personally to collect me, his weathered face grim. "You're being reassigned," he said, effective immediately. "I can handle it. I know the rules. I haven't broken any. This isn't about what you can handle, Hale. They know your name now. They've marked you. Staying at Station 7 is suicide. We're moving you to a different sector, somewhere less active. What about whoever replaces me? Are you just sending them to their death? No one's replacing you. Station 7 is being closed, at least temporarily. We'll monitor the area with aerial surveys and emergency response only. No permanent presence. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt like a coward. What about Drake? What about the other rangers in remote stations? Drake's been doing this for years. He knows how to protect himself. The others have been warned, given additional resources. Carson's expression softened slightly. Look, kid, you lasted 10 weeks. That's better than most. You learned the rules, you followed them, you survived an encounter. That's a success story in my book. And Avery? Still in the hospital. Doctors can't find anything physically wrong with him, but he's non-responsive. Just stares at nothing. They're saying it's a psychological break. Trauma from being lost in the forest. Carson's jaw tightened. We know better. I packed my gear that afternoon, loading everything into the Park Service truck. As I did one final walkthrough of the cabin, I found the notebook on the kitchen table. I started to pack it with my things, then stopped. This belonged here. This was part of Station 7's history, its legacy. I sat down and wrote one final entry. To whoever comes after me, if anyone ever does. I lasted 10 weeks. Longer than most, I'm told. I saw them. Talked to them. Barely survived them. The rules work mostly, but they're not perfect. They adapt, learn, find ways around the protections. They took my friend. They know my name. I'm leaving now, but I know they're not done with me. You can't see what I've seen and just walk away unchanged. Part of me will always be in these woods, and part of these woods will always be in me. Be careful. Be smart. Trust no one who approaches after dark. And remember, they're always watching, always waiting. Always hungry. Good luck. You're going to need it. Wyatt Hale, August 2025. I closed the notebook and left it on the table. Then I walked out of Station 7 for the last time, climbed into the truck and drove away without looking back. But here's the thing about Coconino National Forest. About Station 7. About the things that live in the darkness between the trees. They don't let you go that easily. I've been at my new station for 3 weeks now. It's in a well-traveled area. Lots of day hikers and families, completely different from the isolation of Station 7. I should feel safe. Should sleep through the night without waking in cold sweats. Instead, I hear whistling. It's faint, distant, but it's there. A melody I remember from my nights at Station 7. I see figures at the edges of my vision, gone when I turn to look directly at them. And last night, someone knocked on my door at midnight. I looked through the peephole and saw Avery standing on my porch. "Hey, Wyatt," he said, his voice perfectly normal. "Can you let me in?" I'm cold. I backed away from the door, my heart racing. Avery is still in the hospital in Flagstaff, 300 miles away. This isn't him. Can't be him, but it looks exactly like him. Sounds exactly like him. Except when I looked through the peephole again, checking his eyes, they reflected the porch light like an animal's, like mirrors. The thing that looks like Avery has been outside my station every night since then. Sometimes it just stands there watching. Other times it calls to me using different voices, my mother, my father, Carson, Drake, all perfectly mimicked. Last night it used my own voice. "Let me in, Wyatt," it said. "I'm so cold out here. I'm so tired. Don't you want to rest? Don't you want to stop fighting?" Part of me does want to stop fighting. Part of me is exhausted beyond measure, worn down by constant vigilance and fear. But I remember what happened to the ones who gave in, who opened their doors, who stopped following the rules. I'm writing this all down because I don't know how much longer I can hold out. The whistling is getting louder. The scratching on my walls is more insistent. Last night I woke up to find my bedroom window open. Cold air pouring in even though I know I locked it. Rule 7. If you wake up and your window or door is open when you know you closed it, do not go back to sleep. I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the wall, knife in hand, every light blazing until dawn. This morning, I found a message carved into my station's signpost. "Coming soon, Wyatt. I've contacted Carson. I've contacted Drake. They're both telling me to hold on, that help is coming, that they're working on a solution. But I can hear it in their voices. They don't believe they can help me. No one can. The things in the forest have decided they want me, and what the forest wants, the forest takes. So I'm posting this as a warning. To anyone who works in remote locations, who spends time in old-growth forests, who thinks they understand the wilderness, be careful. Follow the rules, all of them, no matter how strange they seem. Don't whistle after dark. Check the eyes of anyone who approaches. Trust the animals when they try to warn you. And most importantly, understand this. There are things in the deep woods that are older and stranger and more terrible than you can imagine. They've been here long before us, and they'll be here long after we're gone. Our job isn't to fight them or understand them. Our job is simply to survive them. If you're watching this from safety, from your comfortable home with all the lights on and the doors locked, consider yourself lucky. Consider yourself blessed. And please, if you decide to go camping, to go hiking, to explore the wilderness, be careful, be very, very careful. Because the forest is watching. And sometimes, the forest decides it wants you. It's been 36 hours since I wrote the last entry. Things have escalated. I need to document this while I still can, while I'm still myself. The thing wearing Avery's face is inside the station now. I don't know how it got in. I checked every door, every window, poured salt across every threshold, hung iron above every entrance. But when I woke up this morning, it was sitting at my kitchen table, hands folded calmly, Avery's face wearing an expression of patient waiting. "Hello, Wyatt," it said. I didn't respond. Rule 5, don't acknowledge them. I kept my eyes down, grabbed my radio and stepped back toward the bedroom, intending to lock myself in and call for help. "You can't run from this," it said, still using Avery's voice, Avery's inflection. "We've already chosen you. We've been choosing you your whole life. Your grandfather knew. Your father suspected, and now you know too." My hand froze on the radio. "What are you talking about?" It smiled, and for just a moment the mask slipped. I saw what was underneath, something ancient and hungry and utterly inhuman. Then Avery's face was back, perfect and terrible. The Hale family has always belonged to us. We let your grandfather serve his time. Took him when we were ready. We would have taken your father too, but he was clever. He left the forest, broke the connection. Thought he was free. The thing's smile widened, but blood calls to blood. And here you are, walking right back into our embrace. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why your grandfather never spoke about his time as a ranger. Why your father discouraged you from following in his footsteps. Why you felt compelled to come here despite having other options, better options. It stood, moving with liquid grace. You were always meant to be here, Wyatt. This is your inheritance. Your legacy. I backed away, putting the kitchen table between us. Even if that's true, I can still leave. I can quit, go back to civilization, never enter a forest again. You could, but you won't. It tilted its head, studying me with eyes that were almost Avery's, but not quite. Because you've seen too much now. You know what's out here. What happens to people who don't know the rules, who don't have anyone watching over them. Could you really live with yourself? Safe in some city, knowing that people are dying out here? That we're feeding, always feeding, and no one is there to bear witness, to help, to remember? It was right, and the worst part was that I knew it. What do you want from me? What we've always wanted. A watcher. A guardian. Someone who understands both worlds, the human and the other. Someone who can maintain the balance, keep the boundaries. The thing that looked like Avery moved closer. Your grandfather did it. For 30 years he walked the line, kept the peace. Let us hunt, but only the foolish, the reckless, those who ignored warnings. In exchange, we left the innocent alone. We protected his territory, his people. He made a deal with you. He made a deal with us. And when his time came, he went willingly. Peacefully, a good death, all things considered. It was close enough now that I could smell roses and rot. We can offer you the same. 30 years of service. Then a clean end. No suffering, no horror. Just sleep. I wanted to say no. Wanted to run, to fight, to refuse this impossible choice. But the thing continued. Or you can refuse. Keep running, but we'll find you eventually. And when we do, the offer will be off the table. You'll end up like the others. Like Rebecca Torres. Like all the rangers who tried to fight instead of accept. Its voice dropped to a whisper. Like Avery. He's still alive. His body is alive. But Avery? The person you knew? He's gone, Wyatt. We took him piece by piece while he sat in that clearing. By dawn, there was nothing left but an empty shell. That's what happens to those who resist. That's what will happen to you. I gripped the radio so hard my knuckles went white. And if I agree? If I accept your deal? Then you continue your work. You watch the forest. You help those you can. Guide them away from danger. And in exchange, we leave you alone. We leave your territory alone. You become one of the guardians, the protectors. The ones who stand between the darkness and the light. Like Carson? The thing smiled. Carson has served for 43 years. He's protected hundreds of innocent people. Saved countless lives. All for the small price of letting us take the foolish ones. The ones who ignore warnings, who think themselves invincible. It leaned forward. He'll tell you it was worth it. Every guardian eventually comes to understand. This is the best we can hope for. We can't eliminate the darkness, but we can contain it. Channel it. Minimize the damage. I looked at this thing wearing my friend's face, and I understood with horrifying clarity that it was telling me the truth. This was the real job of rangers in places like Station 7. Not just to maintain trails and watch for fires, but to serve as intermediaries between worlds, negotiators between human and inhuman. I need time to think, I said, of course, but not too much time. The thing moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Wyatt? The real Avery, what's left of him, wanted me to give you a message. He said to tell you it's not your fault. He said he's glad it was him and not you. He said you'll do better than he did. Then it was gone, slipping out the door into the morning light, leaving me alone with an impossible choice. I called Carson immediately. You knew, I said when he answered. You've known all along what they are, what they want. Silence on the other end, then a long sigh. Yeah, kid. I knew. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Would you have accepted it if I had laid it all out on day one? He paused. You had to see it yourself. Experience it. Understand what you were really dealing with. Only then could you make an informed choice, some choice. Accept or die. That's not quite accurate. You can leave, Wyatt. Plenty of rangers have. They quit, move to cities, try to forget. But it stays with them, the knowledge of what's out there. Most of them drink themselves to death within a few years. Others just fade, the guilt eats them alive. And you? You made the deal? I made the deal 43 years ago. I've protected my sector ever since. Saved more people than I can count. And yeah, I've lost some too. The ones who wouldn't listen, who thought they knew better. His voice grew softer. It's not a perfect system, but it's the only one we have. The entities in these forests are eternal. They've been here for millennia, and they'll be here long after humanity is gone. We can't beat them. Can't eliminate them. All we can do is try to coexist, try to minimize the damage. What about Avery? What about Rebecca Torres? Casualties of war. And yes, it is a war, even if it's a cold one. We lose soldiers sometimes. Good people. It's horrible. But the alternative, leaving these places unguarded, letting the entities hunt freely, that's worse. I sat in silence, processing this. How long do I have to decide? They gave you time to think. Days, maybe. But not long. They're patient, but not infinitely so. Carson paused. For what it's worth, kid, I think you'd make a good guardian. You've got the instincts, the dedication, and you come from a guardian family. It's in your blood. That's what they said. Because it's true. Your grandfather was one of the best. He understood the responsibility, the sacrifice, and he did it anyway for 30 years because someone had to. I could hear respect in Carson's voice. He saved hundreds of lives, Wyatt, maybe thousands. Is that not a life worth living? After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, the same place where the thing had sat just hours ago, and I thought about my grandfather. I had only vague memories of him, an old man with weathered hands and sad eyes who smelled like pine and wood smoke. He had died when I was 12, supposedly of a heart attack while hiking alone. No one had questioned it. Rangers die in the line of duty sometimes. But now I wondered, had that been his death? The end of his 30-year deal? Had he walked into the forest one final time, knowing what awaited him and faced it willingly? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old family photos until I found one of him. He was standing in front of a ranger station wearing his uniform, looking directly at the camera. His expression was tired but serene, accepting. He had known. He had made his choice, and apparently he had thought it was worth it. I spent the rest of the day hiking my sector, checking trails, marking hazards. Normal ranger work. But I was seeing it differently now. Understanding the true nature of what I was doing, I wasn't just maintaining wilderness access. I was maintaining boundaries, keeping watch, standing guard. At one point, I came across a family of 4 on one of the trails, parents and 2 young kids, maybe 8 and 10 years old. They had wandered off the main trail, getting dangerously close to one of the areas I had marked as high activity zones. "Excuse me?" I called out. "You'll want to stay on the marked trail. The terrain gets unstable off-path." The father nodded, grateful. "Thanks, we're new to hiking. Don't really know what we're doing yet." I spent 20 minutes with them, giving them tips on wilderness safety, showing them how to read the trail markers, emphasizing the importance of staying in designated areas. As they headed back toward the main trail, the little girl waved at me, grinning. "Thank you, Mr. Ranger." I waved back and something clicked in my mind. This was what guardians did. Not the dramatic confrontations with entities, not the horrifying encounters in the night. This, helping innocent people, keeping them safe, steering them away from danger they couldn't even perceive. My grandfather had done this for 30 years, countless small interventions, quiet victories. People who went home safely without ever knowing what they had been protected from. Was that not a life worth living? Night fell, and with it came the familiar sounds. Whistling from the trees, footsteps circling my station, voices calling out in tones of people I knew. But tonight I didn't hide in my cabin with all the lights on. Tonight I stood on my porch looking out at the darkness. "I want to talk," I called out. The sound stopped. For a moment there was absolute silence. Then the thing wearing Avery's face stepped out of the shadows. "You've decided. I have questions first." It nodded, moving closer. In the moonlight, the mask was more obvious. The slight wrongness of the proportions, the way the skin didn't quite sit right on whatever was underneath. But the eyes were attentive, interested. "Ask." "The deal. 30 years of service, then a clean death." "Can I trust that? How do I know you'll honor it?" "Because we have honored it for centuries. Dozens of guardians before you. Your grandfather, Carson, others in other forests, other territories. We keep our word, Wyatt. It's how this works. Without trust, the system collapses. What exactly does service entail? Watch your sector. Help those you can. Guide people away from danger zones. Document what you see. Maintain the boundaries between human and inhuman. And when we hunt, let us hunt. The foolish, the reckless, those who ignore all warnings, they're fair game. But the innocent, the children, the ones who simply made a mistake, those are yours to protect. And at the end of 30 years, you walk into the forest one last time. We take you quickly, painlessly. Your body will be found, death-ruled natural causes, no horror, no suffering, just completion. I took a deep breath. And if I refuse, then we hunt you. Not immediately. We'll give you time to run, to hide, but eventually we'll find you. And when we do, there will be no mercy, no quick end. You'll die slowly, horribly, and when your body is found, if it's found, the death will be unexplainable. Disturbing. The kind of death that haunts investigators for years. It was laying out the terms clearly, without sugarcoating. I appreciated that in a twisted way. One more question. Why the deals? Why not just hunt freely? For the first time, the thing's expression showed something other than calculated interest. It almost looked sad. Because even we understand balance. Unfettered hunting leads to exposure, investigation, human retaliation. Forest closures, development, destruction of habitats. We've seen it happen in other territories. Better to have a system. Guardians who help maintain our secrecy while protecting the truly innocent. Better to have human allies who understand both worlds. It paused. We are predators, yes, but we are not mindless. We can negotiate, can cooperate for mutual benefit. It made a horrible kind of sense. I need tonight to think about it, I said. Of course, but Wyatt? The thing turned to face me fully, and for just a moment, I saw past the mask to the ancient entity beneath. Choose wisely. This decision defines the rest of your life. And possibly, your death. Then it was gone, melting back into the shadows like it had never been there. I went inside, locked the door, and sat at my kitchen table. I pulled out a notebook, not the old rules notebook, but a fresh one, and I started making 2 lists: reasons to accept, protect innocent people, continue family legacy. 30 years is a long life. Quick, painless death at the end. Maintain balance in the forest, help those who can be helped. Stand against the darkness, purpose and meaning, reasons to refuse. Complicit in deaths of others. Living under constant threat. 30 years is also a short life. Still ends in death, morally compromised position. Always looking over my shoulder. Loss of normal life. Fear, I stared at the lists for hours. Neither side was clearly right or wrong. It was all shades of gray, compromises and sacrifices. Finally, as dawn began to break, I realized something. I had been thinking about this wrong. This wasn't about choosing between good and evil, safety and danger. This was about choosing between action and inaction, between engagement and retreat. If I refused the deal and ran, those innocent hikers I had helped yesterday would still be in danger. Just from someone else's negligence or lack of knowledge instead of mine. The entities would still hunt. People would still die. The only difference would be that I wouldn't be there to help. My grandfather had understood this. Carson understood it. All the guardians throughout history had faced this same choice and decided that imperfect protection was better than no protection at all. I stood up, walked to my porch, and looked out at the forest as the sun rose over the trees. The morning was beautiful. Golden light filtering through pine branches, birds beginning their morning songs, dew sparkling on the grass. The forest in daylight always looked so innocent, so peaceful. But I knew better now. I understood what lurked in the shadows, what waited for darkness to fall. And I understood that someone needed to stand watch, to maintain the balance, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. I accept, I said to the morning air. For a moment nothing happened. Then I felt it. A shift in the atmosphere, a change in the quality of the silence. The forest acknowledged my choice, my commitment, and deep in the trees, something that might have been approval or might have been hunger stirred and settled. I was a guardian now. For better or worse. For 30 years, that was 6 months ago. I'm still here at my station, still doing my job. I maintain trails, help hikers, watch for fires, but I also do the other work now, the invisible work. I steer people away from danger zones. I identify and document high-activity areas. I communicate with other guardians across the region, sharing information and strategies. The entities and I have reached an understanding. They hunt, but only in specific areas, only during certain times, only targeting those who ignore repeated warnings. I've learned to recognize the signs when someone is marked, when they've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. And yes, sometimes I have to let them go, knowing what will happen. Those are the hardest nights, but I also save people. Last month, I found a lost child who had wandered into a high-activity zone. Got her out before nightfall, reunited her with her frantic parents. 2 weeks ago, I convinced a group of teenagers to camp in a different area, away from a spot where entities had been gathering. They thought I was just being a buzzkill ranger. They have no idea I saved their lives. Carson checks in regularly, offering advice and support. He's helped me navigate the complex politics of being a guardian, taught me how to read the subtle signs of entity activity, shared tricks for maintaining my sanity in an insane situation. Drake and I meet up occasionally. He's been a guardian for 12 years now, still has 18 to go. We don't talk much about the job. Mostly we just sit together in companionable silence, two men who understand what the other is going through without needing words. Avery is still in the hospital, still non-responsive. I visit him sometimes, though it tears me apart to see him like that, breathing, existing, but utterly empty. The doctors are talking about long-term care facilities. His family is devastated, clinging to hope for a recovery that will never come. I carry that weight with me. The knowledge that my mistake, my moment of inattention, cost him everything. It drives me to be better, more careful, more vigilant. I owe him that much. As for me, I'm adapting, learning, growing into this role. The nightmares come less frequently now. I've learned to sleep through the whistling, the footsteps, the scratching. They're background noise, part of the job. I've even started adding to the rules notebook, documenting new observations, new patterns. Future guardians will benefit from my hard-won knowledge, just as I benefited from those who came before me. 29.5 years to go. Some nights, I stand on my porch and look out at the forest and I wonder if I made the right choice. If accepting this deal was heroic or cowardly, noble or foolish. I don't have an answer. Maybe there isn't one, but I do know this: I'm helping people. Protecting them, standing between the darkness and the light, and for now, in this moment, that's enough. The forest is watching, always watching, and I'm watching back. This is what it means to be a guardian. This is what it means to be a Hale. This is my inheritance, my legacy, my burden, and I'll carry it for 30 years. Until my time comes, until I walk into the forest one last time and finally rest. Until then, I stand watch.